Oh, goodness. You know, when I look at the Harkin steak fry, look at that face. I can't imagine anybody thought I was old enough to run the country at that point. When I think about 2008, the thing that I always come back to is the young organizers and sometimes not so young volunteers that really helped us win Iowa.
Thank you, Iowa. They said this day would never come. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Stay seated.
Let me start by saying thank you. Some of you may recall that that whole year in 2008, we were actually behind in the polls nationally. And I was getting beat up all the time because I didn't know what I was doing. I was a new candidate. I think the source of inspiration was when we'd land back in Iowa and I'd have a chance to see you guys and you'd tell me about what you were doing. And that gave me hope. It lifted me up. So I really rode the wave of your work, and that ultimately led to a historic election.
So I was born in Ethiopia. My parents came to the US in 1983 as asylum seekers. And I remember growing up in Northern Virginia with kind of this idea of what it meant to be an American that never really fit in with anybody else's conception. And then I remember in 2004 you gave your speech, your famous DNC speech. And you talked about, America being a great country because it's a place where a skinny kid with a funny name could have a chance to succeed, and that deeply resonated with me.
Yes, you qualified.
I graduated in June of 2007, and 3 days later found myself in rural Iowa as your field organizer. My first day, I was in a community full of people in horses and buggies because we had a large Mennonite community in one of my towns, and had this moment of, what am I doing here?
In 2007, I was working at a law firm in Des Moines and was inspired by your campaign. Thought it was an opportunity to be involved in something bigger, so I quit and took about an 85% pay cut, which intrigued my in-laws.
I'll bet. One of the things that I think prompted us to want to have this little mini reunion is that the whole premise of the Obama Foundation is there are young people who are just as idealistic, just as energetic, just as motivated, and they don't always have a campaign to attach themselves to. Since you guys were some of the original guinea pigs, we thought it'd be useful to talk to you. Were there some skill sets or concepts that were kind of drilled into you that turned out to have some sort of lasting resonance with you?
One of the many mantras that we heard on the campaign was, "It's not about you."
Yes.
Which is not to say that the campaign didn't care about us. It's more to say that we are here as individuals to support something that is bigger than ourselves. I took that to heart because a lot of the things that I was initially doing, especially as like an unpaid intern, were just, cleaning up the supply closet or greet the people at the door. And I just kept reminding myself, it's about the mission, it's not about you.
You will be pleased to know that at least once a day, I'd remind myself of the same lesson when I was in the Oval Office, right? Because there was a bunch of stuff I didn't want to do. Constantly reminding yourself that, you're working off the aspirations of all these people all around the country who are counting on you, and I think that was a really important aspect of me staying level-headed.
We had another mantra in Iowa: respect, empower, include. Being a field organizer, you're dealing with people, trying to understand where they come from, what their hopes and dreams and aspirations are.
There was the butcher at the local grocery store. He was a Republican, but he was excited about you, and he ended up volunteering for the campaign. I'd give him these call sheets, and he'd say, well, I've cut this person's meat my whole life and that person's meat my whole life, and I'd hear him on the phone talking to people and he'd say, yeah, this isn't about left or right. This is about where we need to go as a country. And it often felt like you were running for local office.
The campaign also really challenged my idea of what leadership could look like. My idea of leadership was it's the most gregarious person in the room. I didn't see myself in that. But instead, what was modeled to me from leadership on the campaign was a lot of really smart, dynamic people, but they were giving other people the space to kind of create this shared vision of what our organization could look like.
We drew inspiration from the people who were just coming out every day, doing the difficult thing that was right, and being very persistent, even when you couldn't see the immediate results. It made me realize, like, well, I can't let them down, so I have to keep going.
Which is how I felt about you guys. It really is. Are there some lessons that you take from those memories of being 22 for these young organizers so that they feel the same kind of stick-to-itness that all of you have?
I think one of the things I remember was everyone was really focused on how technology was like a catalyst for all we were able to do, which is true to a certain extent, but then ultimately there wasn't a substitute for the in-person work that needs to be done to really kind of build community.
Leadership doesn't look the same across the board. Participation and engagement doesn't look the same across the board. Everyone found the role that felt best to them, that contributed to creating a community space where people really wanted to spend time. And so thinking about how engagement and participation all adds up, every little bit does help, and bringing that cumulative experience together can be really, really powerful.
Well, I've so enjoyed talking to you. No wonder I was inspired back then by you. You know, you guys are still inspiring. Each of you are still reflecting what I think was best about this country and hopefully what our campaign represented. Really makes me proud. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.